Good evening or good morning. I don't know who is joining from where, but I guess we have a more European crowd. So I am Celine from Jamba, and I will kick off today. And we have a special guest, Robin Bradley from UK. And I need to share the screen, I think, Elena, or can you allow me? Yes, so maybe just a quick round with like who we are with Ida and Jamba. This is our 9th talk, and the topic today is AI and productivity in the business sector. And the brainstorm talks are organized by Ida, AI for Development Agency, and Jamba. We are from Vienna, both of the organizations, but Ida is quite active in Middle East and Africa as well. And they're working to support local and global communities to engage with AI and to engage wisely with AI and the resulting societal change. And at Jamba, we are also an NGO like AI for Development Agency. We are based in Vienna, and our mission is to support people with disabilities in accessing jobs of the future with digital and data skills and through training and job matching. And we are quite a young organization, and we are still in a phase of research and innovation for our platform. And before going too long about who we are as organizations, maybe just a quick info on how this meeting is set up. We are being recorded, as you're aware right now, and your microphone should be muted most of the time. And we will have a chat like after Robin's presentation, so you can ask questions in the chat function. And in general, like the whole agenda around brainstorm talks was that we wanted to create resources and knowledge around AI and its applications, and to provide education and understanding, as well as not only about opportunities, but also challenges. And so we will have another talk actually, like in a few weeks, possibly still within July, and that will be announced. So stay tuned for that. And I will also just briefly outline what we will talk today. As we said in the beginning, we are going to focus today on AI's role in the business sector and the productivity. And the main issue here is how the data is used, because again, everything boils down to data. And then we will leave the floor to Robin, and he will talk further about his insights, and we will have a Q&A session afterwards. So maybe just a brief snapshot how expectations from AI in terms of productivity are being shaped. So it is being expected that the GDP growth and the productivity growth will be quite positively influenced by automation. And we see here McKinsey's some recent research findings that they expect that the next 50 years will be quite driven by the productivity growth that is coming through automation and new systems. And so automation is seen, this is the whole age, like integrating full force robotics, artificial intelligence, and all kinds of machine learning tools. And we obviously have this idea that automation does it naturally lead to productivity? Obviously, this is a more challenging question, and we see many applications from consumer research, marketing, to employee recruitment. But we have this impression that this productivity is quite one of the bigger expectations where the society and the economies can benefit from AI. Here are again some forecasts and some findings about how the general AI market is progressing. The current market size is estimated to be around $62 billion in 2020. And when we look at different findings, for example, in 2010, a survey by Gartner said that among enterprises that responded to their survey, only 10% were deploying AI or were about to do shortly. And this number climbed up to 37% in 2019. So it's a surge of about tripling, like 270% in 4 years. And we also expect this AI market in generally grow double digits in the next 5 years as well. And when we look at some McKinsey research, again, they think that 50% of the activities which is currently done by the world's workforce that could be potentially automated by 55. So up and down, minus and plus 20 years, that could be possible, but that's a rough estimate. That's like our work dynamics will change dramatically. And that doesn't mean that every job will disappear, but certain parts of each type of job can be affected. And another insight is that actually a lot of people are working on AI, researching AI, but only about 12% actively use them because the implementation is obviously coming with a lag, and the developments are quite fast as well, but still the wide scale use obviously is not there yet. And because it also requires a lot of skills, and we've been talking a lot about skill shortages in AI, and this is also what we want to tackle in our missions, both organizations. And we look at also again some snapshot from McKinsey research, and they also see that about 60% of occupations have at least 30% of their activities automatable. So this is like an estimate, but you see that there are different activities. Of course, physical activities are more easily replaceable or automatable, and also data handling mechanisms as well. So the processing power has been growing, and this also increased our capabilities for analyzing data, and we are able to analyze large data sets, train them into algorithms, and then analyze different inputs from speech to images or video. And yeah, like estimated gains actually are going to be there, like all this productivity and GDP growth that I showed a few slides before. These are only possible to materialize if people and humans are working alongside these mechanisms. And it's again an expectation that by 35, AI-powered technologies could increase labor productivity by around 40%. And the top sectors we look at, which are more like intensively benefiting from AI applications, are, for example, travel and tourism, tops the list. There is logistics, retail, and then we see various manufacturing companies or sectors from different oil and gas or chemicals. So this is quite a different scale of activities going on, and there are different, like, these expectations are obviously also moving along as we speak, but these are some snapshots. And yeah, I think, ready to move on, to leave the floor to our guest speaker, a very special guest, who will talk further about these topics. And yeah, maybe, I mean, he can present himself as well, but he has worked on a lot of projects and coached a lot of entrepreneurs as well as students in different applications of AI. And he personally developed a voice AI startup. And yeah, he's also a lecturer. So I will stop now sharing. And I think, Robin, you should be sharing your screen, right?
Yeah, if I can get access to share, that'd be great. But thank you, Celine. Very good. Nice introduction and nice summary of the state of the market at the moment, I think.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, it's a bit moving target.
Yeah, I think it's...
So okay, you can share.
So hopefully you can see my screen.
Yes. And now I think switching to presentation mode, yeah.
Okay, so yeah, I've worked at IBM for about 10 years. I've run a couple of startups in the UK, a voice AI one, and then was head of AI at a small consultancy. And I've recently joined BigSpark, which is a data ops consultancy, as a director as well. So we'll talk today a little bit more about AI and what's happening in the market, but also how do you manage your data effectively to get the most value out of the tools that are available. So how much data is in the world? So I think it's interesting that Celine, you were talking about forward-facing and what's happening going forward. If we look back to where we were sort of 20 years ago and think about how much data is in the world now and previously, and that rapid rate of change. You know, the total global internet in 1984 was only 15 gigabytes of data per month. So only 15 gigabytes around the whole world. Now we're going back before some of you guys were born, but that's just a comparison. As we sort of move forward into 2014, it was 15 gigabytes per user per month. So millions or billions of people around the world using the internet. They were generating the same amount as the total global internet was in 1984. Nowadays, there's 5 billion searches on search engines alone and 2.5 quintillion bytes of data per day being generated. So that's a lot of zeros. And I didn't type it out on the phone, but the scale and the amount of data that's being created nowadays and to understand is just becoming huge and beyond comprehension, really. And some of the research was saying that there's, in the future or going forward, there's going to be 200 billion IoT devices. So how much data is being provided into the market, into businesses to actually interpret and understand? And I think that's one of the key questions that businesses and sort of people are having to grapple with in modern society. So what do you actually do with the data? What data do you need? What data do you need to collect? What's actually useful for you and your customers? And then really focus, it gets businesses, the really good businesses focus on, well, what data can drive value for us and how can I get a return on investment from that data? So Celine was talking around the travel and logistics business models, and they focus a lot on their customers and how they can service their customers quicker and more efficiently using data and the power of AI together to produce them real-time recommendations on next best action, or if in the tourist industry it's like, well, giving you recommendations on nice holidays that you'd want to go on in the future. So can you give customers what they want before they actually know they want it per se? So how do you do that, and why do we keep talking about data and understanding your data? Well, if you can't understand your data and you can't manage your data effectively, then it doesn't matter how good your AI tools are and how good your technology stack is, you can't drive that return on investment and value creation. So you need to manage your data effectively. You need to make sure that you can collect it. You need to obviously retain it and keep it, but then organize it and understand that data. And like we were talking about, when you're talking about billions of records or billions of transactional files, how you do that effectively is not a manual task. It's got to be automated. And nowadays people are moving to use machine learning and then AI to do these kind of tasks. So it's important that companies have a robust data management strategy that goes along their sort of IT strategy and their how they use AI and other emerging technologies. And I think the key thing from this is data is a kind of capital now. So data is value for companies. So, you know, when you look at banks and you look at other organizations, what actually are they? They're actually just data companies. Uber makes more money nowadays from data and selling data across the market than it does actually from taxi rides. And, you know, the business that you'd see on the street is Uber's a taxi company. Well, actually, it's a data company. It collects data from cars. It collects data about customers and their trips and where they're going and their locations. It collates data around that consumer behavior and then sells that to other companies and makes an inordinate amount of money about that collation of data. So nowadays, data capital is business capital, and it's actually, you know, the most valuable thing that most companies have. So you need to try and have a good strategy on how you manage the data efficiently, and then what tooling you use to extract that value from your data. So this goes into how do you assess it and how do you use your data efficiently. So you can have the best AI tools possible. So you can be the best AI company in the world or have the best AI tools possible. But if you don't use them properly and you don't understand your data and apply them appropriately, then you can't extract the value. Because if you put rubbish data into a tool, it just uses that to give the outcome, and then it won't be the most efficient option for your company. So then we get into the world of emerging technology and where we are as a society today. So the other dynamic and paradigm that CEOs and executives have are what technology should you use and how do you understand that sort of rapidly changing world that is, you know, the technology and IT space. And in the next decade, there's a whole load of a raft of emerging technology, and this will continue to evolve, but emerging technology that you need to think about and integrate into your ecosystem. And again, I think it goes back to being very clear and transparent about your line of sight on what is your key business area, what value are you trying to create for your customers, whether they be internal or external customers. And then therefore, if you align your business strategy clearly with your IT strategy, then you can look at your architecture around which tools that you need to use and how AI and other emerging technologies can help you achieve those goals as a business. So we're supposed to talk about AI today and the different areas of AI and how that can help a business. I think I like this slide, and it's only a snapshot, and this is probably out of date because it was, you know, I pulled it together a few months ago for one of my lectures. But in AI, there's actually lots and lots of different components and different areas that are growing rapidly. So we've got computer vision for platforms. We've got we've got smart robots, we've got speech recognition, we've got voice recognition, we've got the natural language processing, the sort of the speech-to-speech translation, and then context awareness computing. So even if you just focus on, say, speech-to-text recognition, there's lots of different tools and lots of different approaches that you could do to extract value from that. So understanding your space and understanding that value proposition, again, is very important to then make sure that you use the right tooling and use the right AI within your business to analyze things more quicker and then process data quicker. So I think Celine earlier talked about how the analysis capabilities was going to supercharge businesses in the future. Using AI can actually do that. And then the power of the processing power, you tend to then look at, okay, can we use AI in combination with data, big data, Spark, Hadoop, Cloudera, and then the power of the cloud as well? And can we combine all sort of 3 or 4 or 5 of those components together to actually drive your businesses forward? And I think one of the things that I like to think about, especially in some of those key areas or the real growth areas that we mentioned, or Celine mentioned earlier, around travel or logistics or retail, it's actually giving the customers what they want before they even know they want it. So can you create the utopia that everyone talks about in big businesses? Can you create that single view of your customer and try and transform that customer journey to increase your return on investment or increase your profits? So what does that mean? And just bring that to life a little bit. It's basically collating all the data around your customers and having that central to your decision making and central to how you set your business strategy, but then also your IT strategy alongside that. And the modern UI, UX thinking is, okay, well, when you understand your customer, can you map your customer journeys that they will go through when they interact with you as a business? And can you become proactive in offering them services or products before they know they really want it, or understanding their customers and their search history or their behavioral patterns or their life events even? So can you understand how old they are and profile customers? Can you understand what they're looking at on the internet and their search histories? Can you understand what they're watching on telly or watching on the internet? And then combine all those different sources of information to give you a single view of that customer, and then actually give them the products when they want them, or before they actually know they want them, to the different platforms that they're on as well. So this is just a slide just talking about the day in the life of a teenager at the moment, really, or a young person, and when they actually interact with AI and how they interact with AI. And I think the important thing to now think about is, well, actually, this talks about that customer persona and that customer journey. Where do your customers actually interact with you, and how do they interact with you? Well, actually, most people start off at the start of the day on the phone. So whether they're at home or, when you used to commute to work on the trains, although that's slightly changed with COVID times, you'd be on your phone and you'd be interacting with certain services or certain applications on your phone. There's a big rise in the professional world about smart assistants now. So can you use smart assistants to help you plan your day and how AI interacts with that? And then you go through your day in the life of just a normal person interacting with Netflix, or when you're writing some documents, can they do spell checks for you? Can they actually how do you interact with chatbots, or how can they make your life a lot easier by unblocking or discarding unwanted emails? And not just waiting for you to write rules, can they do that automatically for you? and analyze your preferences for these different platforms or services that you're consuming. And then with the AI capabilities, sort of make your life easier by decluttering all of these data points that are coming into you, pushing away data that you're not interested in and just refining it and giving you that data that you're really interested in, so you can make your decisions quicker and easier in the workplace. And that's in the workplace and in real life. And I think that's the key to how AI can really empower people and businesses going forward. So I think we talked around some of the key areas of business that are growing and using AI and different technologies to transform their operations. I think some of the really good retailers now are using a combined approach to enhance their retail experience. So people don't need to go into physical stores anymore. And when they do go into physical shops and clothes stores, they should get a really good experience, and they should feel as though they're getting a personalized experience. And can the retailers actually give them, the clothes that they want and understand what they want? And there's definitely there's analysis saying that if you can engage customers within the first 30 seconds that they walk into a store, they're exponentially more likely to buy from you. And they only stay in a store for a certain amount of time before they'll leave if they're not engaged. So how do you engage with your customers quicker in a retail environment? And how can you ensure you're giving them the service that they want and it's a really pleasurable experience, so they are more sticky and come back to you in the future? This sort of picture goes through a sort of customer journey of someone walking in the store. Through the beacons that you can put in there, you can identify customers through Bluetooth. Some of the best retail outlets now have their customer services assistants in the store with iPads or similar devices that actually ping up with customer profiles as they walk into the store. So they know that Robin Bradley has just arrived within their store. And actually it pings up with a recommendation that Robin last night was looking at some new jackets, some new red jackets that we've got, and our new line of jackets. So what you can actually do is then be really creative and go, well, let's adapt our marketing and our advertising within the store, within some of these digital screens and advertising screens that we have around the store, to bring up that jacket that Robin was looking at last night. And not only that, it could be, can you be even more creative and have that AR or VR experience where not only does it show the jacket, when Robin walks over, it shows the jacket on him and it shows him in the jacket and how good he looks in that jacket. So you can combine the power of understanding and having that single view of a customer with some of the modern day technologies around AI, VR, AR, to enhance that customer experience. And then wouldn't it be great if the sales assistant came over and went, oh, Robin, would you like to try on the jacket? Here it is. Are you interested in this jacket? Now, you might find it a little bit spooky the first time it happens, but actually this is real life, and some of the top end retailers are actually doing this at the moment. And also proactively phoning customers that they know are either in the vicinity or have been looking at their websites in the last X amount of minutes to build up that relationship and interact with them in a different way. So this is transforming businesses, one, using data more efficiently. So understanding your customers, like we said, around having that single view of a customer is massively important to being able to transform your business using the best and emerging technologies out there like AI, be it virtual reality, augmented reality, and other things alike that you can use. So why do we talk about, and what is that thought process about that sort of empowering businesses, and how do you do that digital transformation using AI and potentially RPA and other tools? I think this week or last week actually, the CEO of IBM was talking about how through using a combination of big data, edge computing, AI, and then some robotic process automation or cognitive process automation, they were transforming the healthcare system across multiple countries to actually transform the way they offer health services and actually save lives. And nowadays, it can't be a single view. You can't just think that you can actually embed some new AI tools into your antiquated and old data estate or IT architecture and think that that will actually transform your business. There needs to be a combined strategic approach on how you build out your IT infrastructure. What is your IT strategy combined with your business strategy to transform how you interact with your customers, like we said, and how you empower that by doing a proper digital transformation. And Gartner's saying you should build out an intelligent digital mesh of tooling to actually do that at different layers, talking about that intelligent front end layer, the digital layer, and then the mesh of technologies to bring that all together. So in a business, and this is a sort of government slide that's available on how they look at things, is how do you look at things in different ways, and how can you combine your strategy with your back office functions and how you engage customers. So thinking about the different paradigms in your business and how they all interact and what are the most important things for you is key to that success. So we go back to that question about, well, what defines you as a business, what are your key drivers, and what will actually drive the greatest return on investment. And I think these Venn diagrams are useful to think about, well, where is that sweet spot and what should you be looking at? So personalizing service delivery through machine learning in this example is one of the key ones, addressing queries of caseworkers and internal employees. So how can you translate your data and make it easier and quicker for your business to react to queries that are raised, whether they're internal or external? And that goes back to we all know that jobs are going to change, and we all know that the power of AI or robotic process automation is going to impact organizations and change the way we work. But what the best companies are doing are empowering their employees to move up that value chain by using these tools to supplement what they're doing. So they get their employees to do added value tasks within the workforce that can actually, and use AI to empower them to do things quicker, faster, and more efficiently. So how do they do that? Well, one of the ways is that they can use AI to improve their decision support systems. So this goes back to the general principles we were talking about earlier around how can you analyze data more efficiently and build out that capability, the analysis capability? How can you process data quicker for your customers, whether it's internally or external customers? And then how can you use AI to actually give those informed outputs to support some of your decision making and decision makers? So this is just an example about one AI engine where it takes in sort of policies, laws, and views and information and data sources. It uses deep learning techniques to process that data and understand the policies and laws that are out there, and then give out outputs that give qualified recommendations to your internal staff and policymakers or your lawyers to start interactive dialogues, but from an informed position. So instead of having to read and understand thousands of pages of new policy documents or laws that are coming out or news articles, AI can actually work alongside big data techniques to give a problematic based learning and interface, and give outputs to those business owners to make decisions quicker and faster and more efficiently. So there's a question around, so then we've sort of gone theoretically about how you do these kind of things and what you need to do. There's then, well, how do you actually collate and understand that data better? And how do you organize your back-end systems and processes to actually understand your data and have an effective data management layer? And I think this diagram shows it in a nice way where it's quite simple to understand the different concepts. So one is around collecting your data efficiently. The next is how do you store your data in your data stores. The third one is around how do you analyze your data and use data intelligent platforms to do that. And the fourth one is around how you consume your data. So there's a whole load of new data collection and data pipeline techniques and tools that you can use to extract data or consume data and do that effectively. But you need to do that in a controlled manner with event-based management. Can you use microservices to do it quickly and efficiently? You know, gone are the days that you need to wait for batch jobs to load overnight. You should be able to trigger events now, real time, using microservices and event management techniques, using the best scheduling and orchestration tools in the market. That then you can collect that data real time to process things quickly and efficiently. Then can you use your core platforms, for example, your data platforms, your big data platforms in the cloud, to take that data, store it efficiently in whatever format you want, but have it so it's maybe unstructured, maybe it's social media, maybe it's public data that you're collating, but can you store that effectively and then use modern day AI platforms, machine learning and cognitive services and other data wrangling techniques to analyze that data and then expose it for consumption through a data layer or open APIs for your consumers to consume. Generally, that is the modern day sort of thought process about how do you manage and understand your data effectively. I've got a few more slides. I'll just go through a couple and then I'll open it up for the floor. I think one of the things that I find interesting today, and I think it builds on what Salim was talking about earlier, was the different stages of robotic process automation and where we are in that journey. I think if we roll back a couple of years, and UiPath and Automation Anywhere we're sort of new to the market. It was very much a rules engine based approach to robotic process automation. Scripting, basically, you know, can you write a rule and it'll automate that and it's basically a cost reduction process by taking out people's jobs, by automating it. Nowadays, we've actually, that maturity curve's moved quite quickly to the right-hand side of cognitive automation. So they talk about either cognitive or intelligent process automation, where can you use the power of AI to actually supercharge that process automation? Can you use natural language processing? Can you use machine learning and large-scale processing and adaptive techniques in there to actually make the make these sort of take it from just a rule-based approach to actually these kind of processes thinking for themselves and producing the outputs that a human potentially would. And that's why there's a large potential to transform the workplace using these kind of tools going forward. Celine, I think that's sort of what I wanted to cover. There's a few more slides around blockchain and empowering the edge and how it all fits together. But I think the key principles are, as a business, you need to understand what you're trying to do, the key drivers for your business, and what will actually create value, and then have a combined business and IT strategy to solve those problems. So I'll go back.
Yeah. So I see you had also some blockchain discussion, but maybe, you thought we can spare it for another.
Blockchain's a whole different discussion, isn't it? But I think it's just another way of how do you manage your data effectively. So some of the big use cases about blockchain are managing data in a transparent and immutable way. So how do you could build that into some of your sources of data and how you manage and collate data. So I think in that core enterprise platform or services, we've got blockchain in there. So it's just one component of an ecosystem that you'd want to build out. And just a very secure way of storing data or transferring data slash value if you get into the coin space.
Yeah.
But I'm happy to talk through and answer questions from the team, and then go into a bit more detail in any of the sections that they're interested in.
Yeah. This noise is coming from your place, I guess, right, Robin?
Is it?
Sometimes there is but no, it wasn't disturbing that we were hearing you perfectly. But I was not sure if anyone has microphones on. No. So, yeah, so do you think we are like in a business applications like that you see again about this comparison between researching versus applying, or like we know sometimes research is ahead, sometimes is behind, but how much do you think we know? Like, what is that, the tip of the iceberg, or do people, I mean, the experts, let's say, take the average, not the average person, but the expert view? Like, are we aware? Yeah.
I don't think people understand the power of AI in society generally. I think it's, your transformation slide and some of the Gartner research and research that's out there is, in 30 years' time, like you're saying, 50% of our jobs will be impacted and changed by AI. So that's a massive impact to society. Now it started to impact our lives, and I think through simple things like Alexa and other voice assistants and gadgets that you get in your house, people are beginning to wake up to it. And actually things like Amazon and Facebook and how some of the news articles around those platforms, people are starting to scratch the surface and start to understand how companies are using AI to transform their services. But the rate of change is not going to slow down. And I think one of the interesting things that I'm quite big on ethics and how you do AI ethically. And one of the people that presented at CogX was sort of saying, well, if you can think of a use case for AI, someone's already started developing it and is probably already working and researching in that space. So that's quite not a scary proposition, but they talked about the ethics of use by governments or by in the military sector and things like that, or the police force, and it's an interesting dynamic on how where it's going to go and how you govern it and how you ethically develop AI in the future. I think that's going to be a big thing.
Celine, I think there's a question in the chat too.
Yeah. Yes, I saw now. Elena, do you want to express yourself, or should I just read it? Or
yeah, sure to say a few words. First of all, thank you so much, Robin, for your presentation. I really enjoyed it, and you know, although I'm quite familiar with this topic, it still fascinates me how much development has been undertaken during research months and years. Yeah, I think part of my question you have already answered, or perhaps not in detail, but we touched upon. I wonder, I'm curious to know your opinion in terms of AI development and AI design. What, in your opinion, would be the best approach for this? Should it be more public sector driven or private sector driven, or perhaps a melange of both? And then the second kind of, you know, question is, would be great if you could share with us also some challenges perhaps that companies or corporates face when adopting AI. You touched upon the data and the important aspect of having clean data, clear data, and also clear understanding about the data. But are there any other aspects that you could call as challenges when AI adoption has to happen? Thank you.
That's okay. So I'll take it a little bit in reverse, I suppose. So the AI adoption issues, I think we've seen over the first few years of AI, there's been a lot of people chasing the most shiny thing and the thing that they think is the best product in the market. But if we go back to the core principle that I talked around, was what is your business actually trying to develop, and what are the key KPIs that you want to develop, or how are you going to add value to your customers within your business, and then work back from there. And I do like the sort of customer-centric approach of designing customer journeys, and then that should be the core to your business. And how you supplement that with the right tooling and the right technologies, I think should be the approach that you take, rather than a technology-driven approach. Now, that said, you need to understand the art of the possible with the new technology. So you need some good research and insights, whether that be from government bodies or public bodies and universities that you partner with, or you have really good research capabilities inside your organization. I think you need to be abreast and understand the art of the possible with the technologies that are out there, because they're changing so quickly. So how you do that is obviously quite difficult. I suppose that leads into the second question around, should that development be in the public or the private space? I think it's key that the public sector continues to research and develop ideas. I think the private sector will always be driven by profit predominantly, so will only drive things that's useful for them. So for the greater good, I think, it's important that the public sector keeps up with this sort of race to understand AI better, the ethical question around AI and how you implement it and how you manage the development of AI is a difficult one, and there's definitely a skill shortage there in the public sector globally to manage that. So that's an interesting dynamic, and I know some of the big companies have pulled out of certain sectors that they were investing in, especially the military sector and different sectors around AI and the use of AI. But at the moment, it's very much self-governing by the bigger players in the market, and how we manage that and how society manage that AI development going forward is a difficult and quite complex question, I think. So Ivor, you've asked me about projects that I'm working on and some of the applications see, if not confidential.
Yeah. If you want to mention some
No,
different use cases or, yeah.
So the proliferation, so the first few use cases, and I've mainly got a banking background at the moment over the last few years. Well, that's not, so I've got a banking background, and what we saw was AI used in two ways. One, to speed up and understand queries, and the use of chatbots was an easy use case to adopt and understand. And I think similarly with robotic process automation, it's a quick win for businesses because they can see they've got thousands of people in a call center. Can we reduce that down by 50%? Save, 500 jobs by replacing it with a robot or replacing it with a chatbot, and that value proposition stacks up nicely. So where we've seen the growth, and Celine mentioned it earlier, in the sort of travel, logistics, or retail sort of situations, is predominantly driven by AI processing data and analyzing data quicker than what humans can do, or more efficiently than humans can do. And AI is always on, so it's 24/7. So those use cases have been the ones that have really formed the market over the last few years. So I worked on a few of those initially. Now we're seeing more advanced sort of techniques on using machine learning and AI. And I'm starting to work on, I'm actually working at the moment in a tier 1 bank in the UK around how do you build out event management processes and manage your data more efficiently, using AI and machine learning to process that nearly real time and understand your data and get that single view of customers from disparate multiple sources in different locations across the bank. So I'm actually leading quite a large sort of federated data engineering program of work to try and do that at the moment, which is quite interesting. And it's using a lot of big data techniques and infrastructure. It's using the cloud. It's using Spark and Kafka capabilities, and then using sort of machine learning sort of techniques to, especially around the event-driven processing of data and how you process things nearly real time when they're coming from different sources is quite interesting, I think. Maybe that's just me being a bit of a data geek and finding that interesting. Sorry, I apologize.
No, that was perfectly fine to hear. Yeah, I think banking was not, I think it was in the list, but it was not maybe in the top 3. But I think to me also banking sounds really like a very like fitting atmosphere for like really trying to make it more productive. But again, like I think freaking out the customers or clients, I think this is always like for people facing B2C, like end users being like persons like us. Sometimes, I mean, I admit I freak out sometimes when I see this whole like data engineered, like something facing me with a like new offer on the internet, or like traveling destination that appears on my phone. So these things, I think, should we get used to it, or otherwise, because we have to click off all the like these cookies and stuff and everything, really manage our privacy. And then again, yeah, it is a dilemma, I think, if you really want to use data for good in a way. I don't know what
I think it's hard.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And I think Angela's sort of talking about the same kind of thing. How do you manage your data more effectively, and the average person with the right mindset and on
Yeah,
using
exactly.
the tool to manage the data? I mean, I think like GDPR was brought in for the good of EU citizens to manage their data effectively. But unfortunately, the way that companies have interpreted it and managed that is by just putting front end sort of, do you accept all our cookies sort of windows that pop up when you click on any website. And I find it really difficult because I don't have enough time to actually read all of those, all the inclination to do it. So I've probably got more cookies now on my phone than I had when I, pre-GDPR. So I think there are tools that can manage that effectively for you and scan things. And there's going to be, AI that can help you. And I think the rise of personal assistants, and as those personal assistants, or virtual assistants, I should say, become more mature and more intelligent, they'll actually be a little bit of a front door process for individuals, in the same way that companies, protect their data and protect their sort of infrastructure. I think going forward, people are going to be the same. Your personal data will be your asset. As we see machines and AI infiltrate the workplace, well, what is your personal brand and what is your personal data? It actually becomes more and more valuable.
Yeah. Laura has a question.
Yeah, it was just similar to what we've been discussing, but when you gave the example of the customer coming into the store with and then getting the recommendation of the red jacket based on the search from the night before, it just is mind baffling. Like, how are the companies handling being transparent about how much information they're collecting to offer these personalized experiences? And
I mean, the best ones, if I'm honest, are quite transparent. Mm-hmm. So they ask you permission and say, look, would you like a personalized service? And some of the top retailers in the UK, I know, and I mean really high end, have VVIP customers that have a personalized service. So these people have got their store cards, but also, they sign up for this personalized service, and it can actually be an added value selling point for these stores. And it's actually seen through into transforming businesses in the UK at the high end of the retail sector. So I think you advertise it and you promote it, and through actually adding real value to what people want, they will actually sign up for it and accept it. So mainly that example would have been for customers that you know about and have already signed up to your services on the internet, and that when they walk into the store, they're pinged by the beacons and they identify you by Bluetooth on your phone, so they know who you are, but you're receptive to it because you're one of their customers. It's harder. There's more ethical concerns when obviously you're just doing that in a wider domain with the general public and scraping data. Mm-hmm. Definitely ethics that you need to think about there.
Yeah, like reminds of Cambridge Analytica.
Yeah, no, exactly. It's not. You've got to be careful there and an ethical approach. So I don't think you can give that real personalised experience unless you've got that consent from your customers.
Yeah. Yeah, I think, we are, it's a really, there are hot topics, and I'm sure, I'm checking if there are other questions. Emmanuel has, I think maybe you already answered, but the whistleblowing, how can companies handle this both for employees and customers? Yeah, this confidentiality.
Yeah, I think companies have to be aware of it now, and there's channels. They use AI and they have voice of the customer is very important. I think especially for employees, and I think we've talked around how you talked at the start around with Jamba, etc. It's hard to retain your good employees at the in the current market, and it will become even harder to keep the best employees with globalization. So being open and having really good company policies around how you engage your employees and your customers, because most people are want to treat customers fairly and want to do the right approach. So having a good transparent process around that is important for the best companies. So I think that's just companies have to put in an infrastructure.
Yeah, maybe transparency alone contributes a lot, because if you're transparent enough, then there is not much to whistleblow, etc. I don't know.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And I think the best companies should do that, and are trying to do that. But unfortunately, capitalization and money gets in the way sometimes, and making profits. So
yeah. So we are more or less, it's already 7. So it was great to have you with us. Thanks a lot. And I know it's summertime and people are getting off, but this is recorded. But I think, more people will find this interesting. And thanks again.
My pleasure. If anyone's got any other questions or wants to talk to me a bit more, my email's on the screen, and please reach out or connect on LinkedIn. So
Thank you very much.
Guys. It's been great.
Nice evening.
Thanks a lot for everyone who joined, being with us. So good evening and best regards from Vienna.
Thanks, Lee.